different kinds of coral deeper and deeper on the reef. All right? Okay. Kinds of reefs. We have 3 kinds of reefs. Okay, you have a fringing reef, you have a barrier reef, and you have an atoll. So an atoll is this ring-like reef right here that you see in the upper right. Okay, barrier reef bottom right, and then fringing reef right here on the left. Okay, so let's look at those and talk about those. So fringing reef. A fringing reef is located right off the edge of the land. So it directly borders the land. It actually doesn't have a lagoon or a back reef. This is like in Hawaii. When you walk out into the water, you walk directly onto the reef flat. Okay, there is no back reef, no lagoon, because it's directly up against the land. So you walk out directly onto the reef flat. Here's kind of a picture. All right. So directly borders the land. This type of reef is probably going to be the most vulnerable to damage by humans, right? Because they're right up against the land, so we can walk right out onto it. And because it's right up against land, pollution, all sorts of runoff, stuff like that would also affect it the most, right? Because it's right there. So that's a fringing reef. The youngest type of reef, keep that in mind. I'll explain that at the end. Here. So here's another picture just to help you see it. All right. So here's the beach that you would lay on, right, in Hawaii. And then you can walk out onto the reef flat and then crest and fore reef slope. Okay? Okay. Second type of reef is a barrier reef. Okay. The barrier reef is separated from the land by a lagoon, and it has a back reef. It is also considered to be the second stage of reef formation. Again, I'll explain what that means. And then, example, obviously the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. The biggest one. Coolest one. So here's profile. So you can see lagoon, back reef slope, reef flat crest, fore reef slope. Okay, and then like I said, you could get patch reefs and stuff like that that'll pop up in the lagoon. So just another profile to help you see it. All right. Okay, on the fore reef slope, you'll actually get these things called spur and groove formations, where you get like basically jets of coral that grow, like these big long lines of coral that grow, and then next to that you'll get like channels of sand, and then like jets of coral, and then channels of sand, and then jets of coral and channels of sand. And that actually is really good for the reef. What it does is it actually allows, like, the channels of sand are exactly what they sound like. They're channels of sand that allow any of the sand that would get deposited on top of the reef to run down and go down to the bottom. Okay, because if it got deposited on the top, it'd smother the coral and the coral would die. So it allows for sand to get out of the way where it's not supposed to be. This is what it looks like from the air. Okay, it's called spur and groove formation. So you see like the dark line next to the lighter line, and the dark line, and the lighter line, dark line, lighter line. Yeah. So the dark lines are the coral, and then the lighter lines are the sand channels. Okay, and you can see the size of that compared to the boat that's right there, right? So it's a big reef. Okay, and then the last type of reef is an atoll. Okay, an atoll is a circular ring-shaped reef. The lagoon is located in the middle. So the lagoon's in the middle, and then you have the lagoon, the back reef, okay, that faces that lagoon. And then you've got like the reef flat all the way around, reef crest, and then the fore reef slope all the way around. Okay, so the final stage of reef formation, and I will show you a picture and explain what that means. Okay. So basically, as you know, explorers were moving around, they were discovered these like ring-shaped reefs in the middle of the ocean. Okay, and they're like this is weird because coral doesn't grow anywhere that's not shallow water because it needs sunlight. So how are we getting these circular shaped reefs? A, why are they circular? B, how are we getting them out in the open ocean where there's no shallow water? Here's what we discovered actually happens. So you get a volcano, right? Because of the plate tectonics and all sorts of like stuff that's going on below the surface, okay? And you get a volcano that forms, and that volcano erupts enough that it actually grows tall enough and becomes an island, okay? That island sticks out of the water, and volcano stops, okay? It's done. But now you have an island. That island creates shallow water, right? And a place for coral larvae to start settling down and start forming a reef. Okay, the first type of reef that it will form is a fringing reef, right? Just right off the edge of the land. Okay, so it starts as a fringing reef. Now that that volcano is dormant, okay, it's going to be subject to erosion, right? So from the waves and the wind, that volcano will start to erode. The reef stays in the same spot because that's where it started growing, but the volcano in the middle starts to erode, all right, and starts to shrink. When that happens, that fringing reef gets separated from the land and becomes a barrier reef, right, because it's now separated from the land. If you keep going and that volcano continues to erode, the reef is left, the volcano is now below the surface of the water, and what you're left with is a ring-shaped reef in the middle of the ocean, okay, and it's called an atoll. So that was an animation, and it's not working on my smart board, so I'm sorry. You can kind of see pictures right here on the right, okay? So that's what happens. It's called an atoll. Okay, that's for